Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the second hour of News and Views right here on Salam Media. It is exactly 9:13 a.m. South African time, and we cross over now to India, and we'll be talking with Shaik Zakeer Hussain. He's the editor at the Cognate based in India. I'm not quite sure which city, but he will clarify that for us in a minute or two. Shaik Zakeer Hussain, Salaam alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you on the show. Where in India are you based?
Yes, I'm based in Bangalore in India. Yes,
Bangalore. That's the south of India.
that's correct. That's the south part of India. Yes.
Okay, nice to be talking with you this morning, but a very sad story we'll be talking about. It's not the first time we're hearing about Islamophobic attacks either on Muslim people in India or Muslim institutions, masjids, etc. And this time around, we are looking at a ban on an 800-year-old masjid, and the story involves the district collector in a BJP ruled Maharashtra's Jalgaon area. He's passed an interim restraining order to ban prayers at this particular masjid. What do we know about the story? What more do we know that has led to this horrendous action being taken against the people of the area and the people that frequent this particular masjid?
Sure. Yeah, like you mentioned, it's not the first time an incident like this has happened, especially in India. I mean, for the past few years, incidents like these happen almost on a daily basis. It's not just about banning prayers in a masjid. Even as we speak, I was just going through a news from Uttar Pradesh, another state in India, which is ruled by the BJP, where an imam was arrested for offering a prayers on a street. So these kind of incidents is quite frequent for the past few years. This particular incident that you're talking about, it's like you mentioned, it's from the state of Maharashtra, from a place called Jalgaon. And the masjid here, it's a Juma masjid. That's the name of the masjid, and it's an 800-year-old masjid. And it's a historical masjid. There are documents to prove that it's a historical masjid, and there are also documents to prove that the namaz has been offered here, the prayers have been offered here for at least from pre-independence era. That's what the documents which the masjid has, it proves. And the masjid falls under the Waqf board. Now, the Waqf board is a statutory body of the government itself, which administers masjids and Waqf properties across India. So it is, the masjid is registered and it's a registered masjid under the government itself. That's what it means, right? And like I mentioned, the five times prayer has been happening here for decades, if not for centuries. And so what happened is, some time ago, an unregistered organization, an unknown organization called the Pandavada Sangharsh Samiti, which is a right-wing Hindutva organization, they started claiming that the masjid was built over a Hindu place of worship, and they said that the masjid itself, the structure of the masjid, it looks like a Hindu temple, and they claim that it's an illegal masjid, and they went to the collector of Jalgaon asking for a ban on prayers in the masjid, right? And the collector, like you mentioned correctly, has issued a restraining order banning prayers on the premises, and the collector has also directed police deployment in the area. And the collector has described the masjid as disputed. So that's what's happened so far. And and this is despite the masjid being registered under the Waqf board, which is a government entity. This is despite the Archaeological Survey of India, which is another statutory body, which has supported the claims of the masjid, telling that that the masjid is an ancient masjid, and at least according to Archaeological Survey of India, the prayers have been offered in the masjid since at least 1986. That is when the masjid came under the Archaeological Survey of India. So despite all this thing, despite people knowing that the prayers have been offering, and despite no evidence that this was at any point of time a temple, the collector has gone ahead and placed an restraining order on the masjid and banned the prayer services there.
This reminds me of the Al Aqsa story by the unoccupied Israeli settlers claiming that Al Aqsa Masjid has been built on one of their sacred sites. So that's outright fascism, isn't it? Outright, almost cleansing, ethnic cleansing. Um, you are coming across a lot of these type of stories playing out in India. You report on these stories. Are you not afraid of
Yeah.
being targeted? Because it seems as if this whole the rise in Islamophobic attacks in India is gaining momentum. How safe are Muslims in India right now?
Um, before answering that question, I'll just make a comment on the Al-Aqsa thing. Yes, it does remind of Al-Aqsa. I mean, it's similar story, not similar, but at least the claim of that there was a Jewish temple on it, and the Muslims have built on it. And this is something that's been played out in India multiple times.
Mm,
I'm not sure if you know or if your audience are aware of it, but in the 1992, the Babri Masjid, which is another ancient
yes.
historical masjid, that was destroyed by the right-wing Hindu nationalists. And the claim was similar that there was a temple built, there was a temple here, and the Muslims destroyed the temple and built a masjid over it. And that masjid was destroyed. And the Supreme Court later, and that case went on for decades. And the Supreme Court eventually gave the site to the Hindus to build a temple over there. So there is fear among the Muslims, especially with the Masjid Committee, with the board, saying that this might be another Babri Masjid case. This might be the incident to communalize a masjid and to take over it. And it's not just the Babri Masjid. There have been multiple masjids where right-wing Hindu organizations have laid claim, telling that these masjids were once temples and these needs to be destroyed and the site needs to be given back to the Hindus. So there is a fear that this might turn out to be another such case. So far, the Masjid Committee has filed a case with the High Court in the state, and they hope that some favorable order might come in this. Yeah, as far as fear is concerned, yeah, the fear is quite real. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not just these incidents. There have been multiple incidents. There was an imam who was arrested just yesterday for offering prayers outside of the masjid on the street. Now, this is not a offering prayers is not criminal. If you know India, if anybody knows anything about India, people offer prayers. Of all communities, they've been offering prayers on the streets. People, celebrate the festivals on street with or without permission, and there have been no incidents of people being arrested for offering prayers on the street. But this pattern of arresting people for offering prayer, there have been incidents of people getting arrested for offering prayers inside their own houses. I'm talking about
Mm,
congregational prayers. There have been many
mm,
incidents during the month of Ramadan where people who did not have access to the masjid, they gathered and offered congregational prayers inside their homes, and people from the other communities, they lodged a complaint and they were arrested for this. And there have been incidents of prayer halls or musallas, being banned. People banned from offering prayers in railway stations or airports, which was never heard of before. So, a couple of years ago, the fear that people had was, people getting arrested for, on fake charges of terrorism, with fake charges of illegal activities, but now the entire religion itself is being criminalized, right? I mean, you wouldn't hear about these kind of incidents outside of India. I mean, you wouldn't hear about these incidents of people getting arrested just for offering prayers, but this is something that's happening in countries like India. So now, I mean, last year, if you know, I think we had done a couple of interviews with Celebrity as well about hijab ban, right? Yeah, girls are being restrained from entering classes just because they are wearing hijab. And
Hmm.
there have been many incidents, I mean, things that you wouldn't even have imagined a couple of years ago. Those things have been happening in many places across India. Just a couple of days ago, in the state of Assam, which is another state which is ruled by the BJP, the chief minister of Assam said that the reason why the prices of vegetables is increasing in the state is because of Muslims. He accused Muslims of, increasing the prices of vegetables, and he asked other communities, to give competition to Muslims so that the inflation doesn't happen. These
So
actually,
he is deliberately stoking racial tensions in that area, and this could really flare totally out of control.
that's correct. I mean, this is a state which already they are, tense relationship between Muslims and other communities, and the chief minister itself, the government itself, is stoking, these kind of hatred against another community. So the incidents, if you see across India, it's not just coming from, non-governmental entities, not just from right-wing Hindu organizations, but many times these things actually come from elected representatives. So this is
Okay,
kind of happening.
Zakir, can I come in here? Let's go back. If memory serves me correctly, when the Congress were, the ruling party in India. When I go back many, many years, nothing of this sort comes to mind at all regarding, I mean, Muslims and Hindus lived, in peace and harmony for many, many years. We do know that pre and post partition times, there was a lot of, there was a lot of problems between Muslims and Hindus, but it eventually did settle down. In recent times, we heard about the Gujarat riots. Do you think that's when all of this started building up? The tensions between Muslims and Hindus, or is this just a case of outright Islamophobia by the BJP party to possibly gain and remain in power for as long as possible?
See, the tensions between Hindus and Muslims have been there for quite a long time. It's not just, it didn't started off with the coming of BJP. It was there even during the time of the Congress. You need to remember there have been many incidents of riots that have been, or mass carnage, killings of Muslims that have taken place while Congress was in power. But we also need to understand, so that's there. I mean, but it was not a policy of the Congress to stoke communal violence, which unfortunately is one of the, the unofficial, at least, policy of the BJP. I mean, many of the policies are anti-Muslim. The BJP is calling for a uniform civil code now, which would, which would basically mean that Muslims would not be able to marry according to their own laws, but they would have or marry or divorce according to their own laws, or adopt kids, or many of the personal things which they can do today according to Islamic Sharia. They would not be able to do it, and they would have to comply by one civil code, which would be implemented, and every community has to adhere to. So some of the policies of the BJP itself, uh, you know, has been said that it's anti-Muslim, it's against the Muslims of India, against Muslims and Islam, which was not the same case with the Congress. Congress doesn't, by policy, it did not have those kind of those incidents. But tensions have always been there, Muslims in India, between communities. But BJP is known to stoke these things, create such incidents directly or through its affiliate organization. You see, BJP is part of what is called as a larger network of the Sangh Parivar, or right-wing Hindu organizations. So BJP is part of that. So you have other organizations like, for example, the RSS or the Bajrang Dal or the VHP. These are organizations you would see on the streets stoking violence or being involved in violent incidents. And the way BJP supports these is by either giving, by its elected legislators, either supporting them directly, or by not filing them, or not taking their cases seriously, or going after them. This is how they support each other. There has been increase in such incidents ever since the BJP has come into power. But there's like the and there have been lots of these incidents. For example, the hijab ban, it was unheard during the time of the Congress,
Yeah.
or banning people from offering prayers in masjids, or offering congregational prayers in their own houses. These were not the kind of incidents that you would hear during the time of Congress. But yeah, there have been riots that have taken place, but these incidents have just increased after the BJP came into power.
So, Zakir, let's look at the Kashmiri issue. Do you think the issue around Kashmir, the Hindu and Muslim parts of Kashmir and, Pakistan or Kashmir, the Kashmiri people wanting autonomy, they want their independence. Do you think that issue is underpinning all of this Islamophobic tendencies towards Muslims in the wider areas of India, or is that a totally separate issue?
It's a total separate issue. It's all said, but it's a total separate issue. If you somebody wants to understand why these things are happening, or why the BJP, you need to understand the policies of the BJP. You need to go back a little bit into history and understand look into the origins of the BJP, or its affiliate organizations. For example, the RSS. The RSS is the most important link here. We need to understand the ideology of the RSS. The ideology of the RSS is to basically marginalize Muslims in India and communists as a threat to Indian culture, Indian civilization. And that's what it's been propagating ever since it came into existence. And it's been all the incidents of violence, many of the riots can be linked directly to RSS or other right wing organizations. So it's basically hatred towards Muslims. It's basically saying that Muslims and they've created a propaganda over the years that Muslims are invaders, they're outsiders, and we need to claim back our heritage. We need to claim back our temples. There's been a huge propaganda over the years that many of the masjids that exist in India are all built on the ruins of Hindu temples that were destroyed
Mm.
by quote unquote Muslim invaders. So this talking of hatred and propaganda in society is the result of it is what you see now in these incidents, right? So just a couple of days ago, there was an incident in Bangalore, the place that I live in, where a bus conductor, a Muslim bus conductor, was forced to remove his skull cap by a passenger, and this bus was filled with other passengers, and nobody came to his rescue, right?
Mm.
So this hatred is now spread in deep in society, where you see even common people, displaying towards fellow beings
Mm.
because of this propaganda that's been infused in them over the
Sad.
years. And then
Very,
you
very
have a
sad
movement
indeed.
against Muslims in Islam. This is something that a different subject altogether. But today there have been more and more movies that's been propaganda movies that's been coming out, which speaks against Muslims in Islam, shows Muslims as a threat to society. They talk about the bogey of love jihad, and other things. So the hatred is deep inside now within society against Muslims.
Shaik Zakeer Hussain, editor of the Cognate in Bangalore, in India. Thank you indeed for your insights into this very disturbing
Yeah,
trend that is playing out in India. And that, of course, the dirty word is called Islamophobia. Shukran very much. Keep safe, inshallah. Salamu alaikum to you.
thank you so much. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me here.